I won't lie. I'm recording this right now and I'm still in some degree of shock. But here goes nothing. Echoes of Wisdom will be the next game in the Zelda universe. This game will be a part of the recognised timeline, and as much as some of you are still on the bandwagon of there not being a timeline, I honestly don't think we can sit and say there isn't one when games like this directly fit into place. Not only will Echoes of Wisdom be in the timeline, but it already has a perfect placement. So let's find out where. As you fall through the rifts, remember to reach out and touch that subscribe button and give this video a massive thumbs up. And then get in the comments. I want to hear whether you think I'm right or wrong. As a new Nintendo Direct was announced on the 17th of June, I really wasn't looking forward to it. I expected a lot of what we got. A lot of HD remasters and remakes and poor looking third party developer games, but we were treated. About 25 minutes into the Direct, a shot of 3 Darknuts surrounding something appears. A hero wearing a cloak runs forward and we clearly get a shot of the Hylian shield before Link runs in and destroys them. He then fights a version of Boar Ganon similar to that of the final form of Ganon in A Link to the Past before Zelda is shown encapsulated in a prison. A rift appears below Link and he and his bow are swallowed by said rift, but before he goes he fires an arrow into the prison which breaks it and releases Zelda from her prison. Now here comes the shocker. Rather than following Link into the hole, we're put into Zelda's shoes and she runs from the rifts that are spreading across Hyrule. Aonuma then gives us a little bit more on the game, explaining that Zelda is indeed the main protagonist. After she's revealed as the protagonist, the Tri-Rod is then revealed. Zelda can create copies of things in the world, tables, water blocks and even enemies to fight for her. From what we're told and what we see, the storyline here is to rescue Link and save Hyrule from the rifts that have been opened. We're shown about 5 minutes of the game, between what is likely the opening cutscene of the game and a fair bit of gameplay, and what we can see is this. The game will be a 3D top-down game, similar to the style of the Link's Awakening remaster on Switch. I personally loved this art style, and immediately fell in love with Echoes the moment I saw this. In the trailer itself, we see this shot of Zelda running from the rifts as she reaches a precipice with an overview shot of Hyrule. We can clearly see Castle Hyrule in the centre, Death Mountain is behind that, and this rock field here, this world is pretty much identical to the world map from A Link to the Past. Where Zelda is exactly during this trailer though is a bit of a mystery. She runs from somewhere and ends up on this ledge which is southeast of Hyrule Castle. The height is on a par with the area of grassland to the left, but higher than the castle itself, and it overlooks the main river. I wanted to say that she's on this ledge here, just north of Lake Hylia, but then the question is, where does she come from? My guess is that this is the same world as A Link to the Past. It's way too coincidental for these key areas to be where they are, and this area looks so close to the map from A Link to the Past for it to just be a coincidence. But I think this world has undergone changes. Some of the ledges and areas have clearly changed, and on top of that, Link's house, which should be due south of Castle Hyrule, is no longer there. Or at least it's not visible from this angle. After this we cut to a shot of Zelda in a prison, presumably underneath Hyrule Castle, which would mimic the original game, and she's approached by a fairy called Tri. Tri then creates the Tri-Rod for her, which Zelda presumably uses to escape the castle using the Echo ability to clone the table, and then she's seen leaving Hyrule Castle with Tri. When we then learn about the Tri-Rod, we can see Triforce elements around the item that she wants to echo. Tri also has 3 Triforce pieces as a tail. This game is going to heavily be imbued with the Triforce, which after Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom failed to really address, is heavily welcomed. We then see Zelda clambering up what looks like Death Mountain using echoes to help her along the way. A lot of shots of the echoes being used are shown in various locations. Before then we see a shot of Zelda using a fish to take a bomb out of another fish's mouth. This section is interesting as it uses the old 2D Mario style design that Link's Awakening used. As we get further through the trailer, we then see Evil Zora and the Zora that we now know and love in disagreement. We see a Deku Scrub pop from the floor, and the Great Deku Tree are also shown. So there's surprisingly a lot to work with here in this 4-minute trailer, and I think we can use this to place our new Zelda game neatly into the timeline. On first analysis, I immediately thought that this was going to go into the Fallen Hero timeline. It just makes sense. We have this map from A Link to the Past as our first dead giveaway, and I'm fairly sure that this is somewhat at least confirmed by the location within the game. Next up though is where it places on the branch of the timeline. So as it currently stands, the order is that after Ocarina of Time the world falls into darkness as Ganondorf reigns supreme. But somebody, likely Zelda herself and the sages, fight to successfully seal Ganondorf inside of the sacred realm, but he's stuck in his boar form. He emerges in A Link to the Past as the evil wizard Aghanim and locks up the 7 maidens or sages in order to stop them from sealing him again. He then takes the Trident of Power and aims to merge the world of light and dark. The storyline is almost exactly what I expect from Echoes. I expect these rifts to be caused by an evil, and judging by the poster image at the end of the trailer, I would suppose that it is Ganon, but that's also relatively difficult to do if Link killed him in the intro of the game. So maybe this isn't the real Ganon, maybe it's a puppet version. Also, it dies way too easily to actually be Ganon, so I'm going with the idea that this is a puppet. I'm also going with this idea because then Ganon is still sealed inside of the Dark World and he's using rifts to merge both worlds once again. This means that this new storyline is going to happen before Link disappears off to Koholint, as Ganon by this point in time of Link's Awakening has already been destroyed. That means that this game has to be set before A Link to the Past. It is set before Ganon is destroyed, and that actually tracks really well with what we see in the game. First we see this town, which at first could be mistaken for Kakariko Village. But this town is clearly attached to the castle, and that wasn't the case in A Link to the Past. One of two things happened here. If Echoes is before A Link to the Past, which I think it is, it would mean that this town gets destroyed either during the events of the game or gets destroyed after the events of the game, which are very plausible. If Echoes is after A Link to the Past in the timeline, then this is built on the castle ground afterwards. But then we see this jungle area, which I presume would take us to our first dungeon possibly. Mainly because the Zelda devs love to put a forest themed dungeon in as dungeon number 1. This looks incredibly overgrown in comparison to any other area within A Link to the Past. I could well imagine that this area got cut down in order to make a new settlement later on down the line. The Zoras shown here also give us a massive hint to the fact that this game is set before A Link to the Past. In the original SNES game, the Zora were all evil. They'd effectively lost their minds and they spat fireballs at Link as he walked past. The King Zora, who I think is this character here in the trailer, demands a ridiculous amount of rupees for some flippers, and is probably the only one still left with any ounce of his mind in A Link to the Past. The newer Zora design came in during the development of Ocarina of Time, and since they've been one of the key races in the Zelda world, Ocarina has set some distance before A Link to the Past, and it would look as though some of the Zora have lost their faculties in Echoes, but not all. The transition here is possibly in progress, or we are about to find out that the Zora just didn't go crazy and there are 2 races, one that got run out of Hyrule by the other in each timeline, which would then make sense with Sidon's fiance in Tears of the Kingdom being this shade of green used to often show that the Zora are evil. Either way, the Zora having both forms in this game point to a time before a change in either power dynamic or sanity, and that point in time must be before A Link to the Past occurs. But what about Link? He's already an established hero at this point, right? This Link that's shown is not the Link from A Link to the Past. This Link is a totally different hero, one that we've not seen before, and here's why. First of all, it wouldn't make sense for this to be pre-A Link to the Past, and our hero already be a hero. Secondly, take a look at the sword, shield, and most importantly, bow. This sword could be a redesign of the Master Sword. After all, it cuts down Ganon or Phantom Ganon with relative ease. It easily could be a redesign, but then this as a design makes no sense when the Master Sword looks nothing like this in A Link to the Past. However, we could argue that the Master Sword in A Link Between Worlds looks more similar to this, and that's why I'm not going to sit on this one for too long. The shield though is more of a design based around the hero of time rather than the hero of legend. Again though, this was the same design in A Link Between Worlds. The bow though? The bow is completely different to anything within either of these games. It almost mimics the Master Sword in its appearance, but closer resembles the Zonite equipment from Tears of the Kingdom. I am not saying that this is a Zonite bow. It's not quite all there, but it is similar. And what I am saying is that this bow is so unlike anything Link has had in either of the other 2 games. Add that to the cloak he now wears, and I am incredibly inclined to say that this guy is not the same Link from A Link to the Past. This would mean that this game is set sometime before A Link to the Past. Not a massive time gap. Not the same sort of time gap as Breath of the Wild to the rest of the series, but there is a gap nonetheless. Enough for areas of this Hyrule to be chopped down and built upon, for areas to disappear completely. I think this Zelda game, if placed in the timeline, which it absolutely should be placed directly before, as a prequel of sorts to the classic SNES game. It's been a while since I spoke about a new game on the Zelda Horizon, and I am so excited to see what Echoes of Wisdom brings. I can't wait to talk about it some more when it releases later on this year. Thank you all for watching, and if you've enjoyed this, why not check out this video, which is all about the Zonai tribes and their massive secrets. I'll see you all next time.